throws the deep back, gets the handoff in the backfield. The Ravens stop him.
This is one of the most feared men to ever step on an NFL field. Just like this savage that kicks a referee in the groin, another who shattered his own teammate's eye socket, and a man who asked for his finger to be amputated. Meet Ronnie Lott. See, Ronnie Lott was one of the most violent safeties to ever patrol an NFL backfield, and his toughness allowed the 49ers to win 4 Super Bowls, but it came at a cost. It's December 1985. The 49ers are headed to the playoffs, when in the final game of the season, Lott breaks his pinky to take down a Cowboys running back. That's when the doctors gave him a choice. Option A, get surgery and miss the postseason, or Option B, amputate the top of the finger and suit up next week. Lott didn't blink. They numbed his hand, sliced off the top of his pinky, wrapped it, and that was it. 1 week later, Lott was back on the field in the wild card round and didn't miss a single snap. That's not just toughness, that's borderline insanity. And if you think losing a finger is bad, Vontaze Burfict did something that made him the most hated man in football. Vontaze was a Pro Bowl talent with a street fighter's soul. Some would say he was even possessed. It was a playoff showdown between 2 divisional foes, the Steelers and the Bengals. And with the game on the line, Burfict did the unthinkable. He did everything in his power to win this game. Unlike most players who would just hold or hit after the whistle, he took it to the next level and tried to dislocate his opponent's shoulder, Ben Roethlisberger. But against all odds, Big Ben returned to the game. Only this time, Burfict wasn't taking any more chances. With less than 20 seconds remaining, Roethlisberger threw a strike to Antonio Brown, and Burfict made sure he never saw the light of day. He launched like a freight train, colliding head-to-head with AB and nearly leaving him unconscious. This single mistake resulted in a 15-yard penalty and cost the Bengals their season. However, Burfict's hunger for violence couldn't be tamed, because 2 years later, his world was about to be flipped upside down. See, Colts tight end Jack Doyle made a catch on his knees when, out of nowhere, Burfict produced the most vicious hit of his career. Doyle was on his knees and Burfict nearly decapitated him. And the NFL was so upset, they suspended Burfict 12 games, shattering the record for the longest suspension for an on-field incident. From 2012 to 2019, Burfict was fined or suspended by the league 13 times, costing him an unprecedented $5 million for his on-field actions. But if that was insane, you haven't met the man who Aaron Rodgers calls the most terrifying player in the league. See, Rodgers was nursing a calf injury at the time, and Lions defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh wasn't about to let him forget it. Following a play, Suh saw Rodgers lying on the turf. That's when all 313 pounds of Suh approached Rodgers and stepped on his leg, not once, but twice. His excuse? His feet were numb from the cold. And as if this $70,000 fine wasn't enough, it only got worse. Because in 2012, he not only stepped on a quarterback's leg, his cleats ended up in Matt Schaub's crotch. This dude tried to prevent a man from having kids, but it still doesn't compare to when he tried to choke Ravens QB Ryan Mallett. However, there's a difference between cheap shots and being downright mean. And trust me, nobody was more mean than Mean Joe Greene. Because every time he stepped on the field, you knew it was going to be all-out war. Out of a possible 190 regular season games, Greene played in 181 of them. He made 10 Pro Bowls and was named the 1972 Defensive Player of the Year. But behind his dominating play was a fiery personality you did not want to mess with. Dick Butkus learned this lesson the hard way. He was yelling at Greene from the other sideline, so Greene walked across the field and spit on him. On a different occasion, Greene faced the Eagles when he attempted to fight their entire offensive line. I mean, he had the audacity to try 5 guys all by himself. But it wasn't just players who got on his nerves, because one time Greene got so fired up at the referee, he decided to kick him in the groin. But what if I told you that he wasn't even the scariest on his own team? That title belonged to Jack Lambert. Between the missing teeth, cold killer stare, and the slouched shoulder, he was football's version of Dracula. NFL Films called him Count Dracula in cleats. John Elway once said, he has no teeth, he was slobbering all over himself. I'm thinking you can have your money back, just get me out of here, let me go be an accountant. And it wasn't just Elway who was petrified. In Super Bowl X, he made an entire team petrified. After kicker Roy Gerela missed his third field goal, Cowboys safety Cliff Harris mocked him to his face. Lambert, though, he wasn't having any of it. He launched Harris into the turf, nearly started a brawl, and then bullied the refs to keeping him in the game. 14 tackles later, the Steelers won. Simply put, poke the bear, and Jack Lambert came out for blood. Seriously, the NFL was a different breed back in the 70s and 80s, and no one understood that better than James Harrison, the most terrifying player Rob Gronkowski ever locked eyes with. When Gronk lined up against Harrison, he had one rule: don't piss him off. Not because Harrison talked trash, but because triggering him meant he'd lift you off the ground and spike you into the turf like a wrestling dummy. Gronk said it best: I'm not going to crush his skill, because if I trigger him, he'll throw me the next play. From tormenting hits against Josh Cribbs to cheap headshots and Thaddeus Lewis, Gronkowski made sure to stay as far away as humanly possible from James Harrison.
Obviously, I am not stronger than James Harrison. I don't think anyone is.
But eventually, he got tired of body slamming players, so he took to slamming fans as well. James Harrison wasn't just a linebacker, he was a blunt force trauma in human form.
This is a violent game.
And if Harrison was a modern-day boogeyman, then the original monster wore number 51 in navy and orange. See, Dick Butkus didn't want to just tackle. He wanted to disassemble you. His mission? Not just to make a hit, but to make you regret ever stepping on the field. Hall of Famer Deacon Jones once said, every time he hit you, he tried to put you in the cemetery, not the hospital. Butkus loved contact so much, he once intercepted a pass at the goal line, and instead of walking into the end zone, he detoured just to truck the quarterback. He forced 27 fumbles, picked off 22 passes, and struck so much fear that opposing players would dive out of bounds before he could reach them.
Roses are red and violets are blue. If you got any sense, you'll keep Butkus away from you.
He wasn't just the best middle linebacker of his era, he defined the position, and the NFL has never seen another one like him. Well, except if your name is Lawrence Taylor. He was the first pass-rushing linebacker who didn't just blitz, he hunted quarterbacks, running backs, even his own coaches when they tried to control him. Bill Parcells once benched him to send a message, so Taylor responded with a game-winning pick six, a fumble recovery, a sack, and a quote that said it all: if I'm in the game, I can control it. He once racked up 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles with a dislocated shoulder.
Lace him up and tie him up. He wants to play in this football game.
He once scored a defensive touchdown with a broken foot.
25 offense, penalty is declined, touchdown.
But he also ended careers. And against the Redskins, he ripped through 2 Hall of Fame offensive linemen on the same play just to track down Joe Theismann, ending the quarterback's career in one of the most gruesome hits in NFL history. In a single hit, his tibia and fibula in his leg snapped. And it's no wonder LT hasn't watched the clip since. Ending a man's career was the last thing he wanted to do, which makes him even scarier.
There's something about Lawrence Taylor that is larger than life.
This was a man so powerful, even his own team feared him.
Hey, Shula, you better hope I never get back in there. I will kick your...
The Giants took out a life insurance policy, not because they feared for his safety, but because they feared what he'd do to everyone else. However, that still doesn't compare to the day Albert Haynesworth turned a football game into a crime scene. The date was October 1st, 2006. That's when Cowboys running back Julius Jones scored a touchdown that almost cost a life. See, on that play, something inside Albert Haynesworth snapped. As the pile cleared, Cowboys center Andre Gerard lies on the ground without his helmet. And that's when Haynesworth, all 6 foot, 6 inch, 350 pounds of him, lifts his cleat and stomps on Gerard's bare face. Not once, twice. It wasn't a scuffle, it wasn't a misstep, it was an intentional, rage-fueled attack, and it left Gerard's face torn open with a gaping wound that needed 30 stitches. Doctors said if the stomp had landed even an inch lower, he could have lost his eye. All it took was one moment of unhinged violence, and Haynesworth's reputation was ruined forever. This guy didn't care about reputation. In fact, he was so nasty he ended his own player's career by crushing his eye socket in a practice drill. Meet Bill Romanowski, clotheslining Jerry Rice, kicking Larry Centers in the head 5 times, spitting in players' face masks. He once shattered Kerry Collins' jaw in a preseason game, but nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what he did to Marcus Williams. It was 2003, Raiders training camp. Marcus Williams, a young offensive lineman, made the mistake of holding Romanowski during a routine drill. Romo snapped. He grabbed Williams by the face mask, yanked violently, and then, when Williams tried to back off, ripped off his helmet and punched him directly in the face. Unconscious. Williams crumpled to the ground, his eye socket shattered. He never played another down in the NFL. In court, Williams revealed the full damage: crushed orbital bone, permanent double vision, memory loss, and chronic depression. The result? A multi-million-dollar lawsuit and a legacy that can't be cleaned. Now, to get to the most feared player of all time, but before we do, we want to give a huge shout out to Terry for joining the Huddle Up fam. And if you want to be entered into our video shout out giveaway, simply subscribe, then comment "I subbed," and you'll be entered to win in our next video. Alright, let's talk about Ray Lewis. Ray didn't need to stomp on a face, break a jaw, or spit in anyone's helmet, but he is the one player who could make a grown man question his career before the ball was even snapped. All he needed was a look, a glare, a presence so suffocating even legends like Tom Brady admitted
Ray Lewis was at the top.
Julian Edelman said Ray studied the Patriots TV broadcast audio just to memorize Brady's play calls. He could read your front, your formation, your cadence, and still blow up your play before it even happened. And when it did happen, you paid for it. Just ask Edelman, who caught a red zone touchdown in a playoff game, only to get kneed so hard in the glutes by Lewis he suffered internal bleeding and developed a massive hematoma. "I wouldn't have been able to play next week," he said. That's how hard Ray Lewis hit. But this wasn't just about the physicality. This was about the energy, the violence, the aura. From the second Ray Lewis ran out of the tunnel with his iconic pregame ritual, to head-smashing hits with helmets flying off in every which direction, to his relentless pursuit and unmatched dedication, no one was as scary to face as Ray Lewis. Going from the scariest NFL players to the most underrated player in the NFL, this guy knew every team's plays before the ball was even snapped, and most people are calling him the league's next superstar. We'll see you there.